This is Anne Boleyn and Elizabeth, the mother and daughter who forever changed British history, by Tracy Borman. Introduction. Born of an infamous woman. One of the oldest and most precious items in the collection of Chequers House, the country residence of Britain's Prime Minister, is a tiny, exquisitely crafted ring, fashioned from mother of pearl and embossed with rubies and diamonds. The bezel carries an intertwined E in diamonds and R in blue enamel for Elizabeth Regina, which gives a clue both to its status and its age. But the most fascinating part of the ring is hidden from view. It opens to reveal two portraits. One is of Elizabeth I. The other is thought to be of her mother, Anne Boleyn, the most famous and controversial of Henry VIII's wives. When closed, the two portraits almost touch face to face, mother to daughter. The Virgin Queen was well known for her love of expensive and elaborate jewelry, yet this comparatively simple piece was her most cherished possession, and she still kept it with her until the day she died. It is a poignant symbol of the private reverence in which she held her late mother throughout her long life. Anne Boleyn and Elizabeth I, two of the most famous women in British history. Their stories are as familiar as they are compelling. Henry VIII's passionate love for Anne turning to bitter disappointment when she failed to give him a son, and to her bloody death on the scaffold barely 3 years after being crowned queen. Her daughter Elizabeth's turbulent path to the throne, her long and glorious reign, a golden age for England, with overseas adventures, Shakespeare and Spenser, royal favorites, the vanquishing of the Armada, all presided over by the self-styled Virgin Queen. And yet, Anne and Elizabeth's stories have never been told together. The nature of their relationship, the impact it had on their own lives and those around them, and its enduring legacy. In part, this is understandable. Elizabeth was less than 3 years old when the Calais swordsman severed her mother's head at the Tower of London on the 19th of May, 1536. Even while Anne had lived, Elizabeth had seen little of her, and had followed the traditional upbringing for a royal infant, established in a separate household, far removed from her parents at court. And then there is the impression that Elizabeth herself gave. She prides herself on her father and glories in him, observed Giovanni Michel, the Venetian ambassador to England during the reign of Elizabeth's sister Mary. The many references that Elizabeth made to her dearest father, and the way in which she apparently tried to emulate his style of monarchy when she became queen, all support this view. By contrast, Elizabeth is commonly but inaccurately said to have referred directly to Anne only twice throughout her long life. She made no attempt to overturn the annulment of her mother's marriage, or to have her reburied in more fitting surroundings than the Tower of London Chapel. The obvious conclusion is that Elizabeth was at best indifferent towards, and at worst ashamed of, Anne. But the truth is both more complex and more fascinating. Exploring Elizabeth's actions, both before and after she became queen, reveals so much more than her words. Both women broke the mold that Tudor society had created for queens, and indeed, for women in general. Elizabeth became a ruler of whom Anne would have been inordinately proud. Indeed, the sort of queen she herself might have become if her life had not been cut so brutally short. There is a delicious irony in the fact that the child who had been the bitterest disappointment to Henry VIII would go on to become by far the longest reigning and most successful of his heirs. Her legacy would reverberate down the centuries, and can still be felt today. And it was a legacy that derived primarily from her mother. When it comes to the Tudors, we have been infatuated with the story of Henry VIII and his 6 wives, and debate endlessly the question of whether Elizabeth I really was the Virgin Queen. Along the way, we have missed the most fascinating relationship of all, that between a mother and daughter who changed the course of British history.